definite male voices speaking, and on this particular, I mean, it started mostly at Joshua Tree last year, and even the day before when we were at Irvine, California, we had a definite male voice that bleeped into the middle of our circle, just sort of in disembodied voice in midair.
Right.
And then we had a couple of voices, whispered voices, and you heard a distinct voice repeating to you in Joshua Tree, and then you and Emery both heard a male voice at Mount Shasta this year too.
Yeah, these were audible. And what's interesting is that you're in thin air, and then there's this ET being that's sort of dematerialized there, but then speaks. And you're going, if you just heard it by yourself, you thought, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. But you're not. This is something which has happened increasingly in the last, and you're right, Linda, since October of 2009, in the last 11 months, when we first had this happen at the Irvine training in Orange County. And it was then after that we went up to Joshua Tree National Park, where we'll be this year, again in November. And there was that's when we got this image of this extraterrestrial being hovering right outside our circle. And I have a feeling it was that being that we heard, frankly, or his group. And because there were several. There were, in fact, when we were at Joshua Tree, just moments before Raven took that photograph, a large number of people in our group heard a group of 3 or 4 ETs speaking. And most people heard mostly female voices then. And it was often in an area outside the circle where I have night vision scopes that are very, very advanced ones, and there was nothing there. No humans there, I should say. And I heard within the voices a male voice, not speaking English, anything I could understand. And then it was shortly after that I said, look, we have to get back in circle. We were sort of on a break. And that's when Raven took this picture. That's up at cseti.org, cseti.org, which is remarkable. And then, so then this year at Shasta, this happened, as Linda mentioned, multiple times. And the other thing that happens, we went up to a place up, I guess it's about 7,000 feet up on the mountain, on Mount Shasta. And it was very cold that night. It got down to like 25 degrees. So, I mean, the group was really, really troopers to be up there at that temperature. But we were sitting in circle doing this deep meditation in cosmic consciousness, and there was this gorgeous series of chimes, electronic tones that were sent. And I had been talking about the Vedic, in the pujas and in the Vedic tradition, the concept of name and form, where a certain tonality can manifest etheric and astral energy and materialize an object. And what we had was an ET civilization send these beautiful chime-like tones that a whole lot of people heard, and they literally emanated from right in front of Dr. Bravo, and she was sitting just immediately to my right in the circle. And people halfway across the circle and everywhere heard this, and it was beautiful. And we have to examine our recorders to see if anyone actually got it on their audio recorders. But again, people talk about the kinds of ways that ETs will make contact, and it isn't all just a craft floating across the sky. It's all these other amazing sorts of experiences that happen at every single one of these expeditions under the stars. And if anything, those things are in a way more astonishing than when a craft comes in.
Well, and it was earlier that same week that Ed and Emery, who were staying on the same property but in different buildings, heard the same type of chiming tone in their respective rooms one morning.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So the chiming has actually, I've heard doorbell sounds.
Yeah, and actually Trudy had that happen this year. One member of her team, who's been with us for many years, was at the Outer Banks of North Carolina and heard the same sort of beautiful tone in her room. And it happened twice, in fact. So these there's tonality, there's light, there's consciousness, and there's the materialization of craft and things that are seen. And I think that this is really quite exciting.
And people were touched also by, whenever you're touched by an ET being, you could swear it was a human doing it because it's a very palpable touch in varying degrees. Like at Boca Grande back in February, I was literally practically slugged in the arm, and to the point that I spun around because I thought it was kind of rude of someone to try to get my attention. They could just give me a tap. It would have been nicer, and there was no one there.
Right. So that's another phenomenon is people are physically touched at times, and there are all kinds of ways. And of course, we did have actual ETs materialize in the field physically in the field around us.
People saw actual people.
Yeah, actual ET beings, and they would appear and then vanish. There were, with a group of 40 people that are new people being trained, they tend to be, I don't know if the correct word is shy, but reticent to be too demonstrative. And I think that it has to do with not only our readiness, but their readiness and whether it would be appropriate. But I think that that's happening increasingly also because it also happened in France. Where we had, 4 to 5 of these beings that appeared in the field when I was walking out past the puja table. And you could actually hear them as the whole group, there were like 60 people there, coming in behind me, and they kind of scurried off. So they're like, oh, my God, there's so many people coming. But they were very, very shy. In fact, I was told that they were shy ones that were observing but weren't ready to, be there with 60 people.
And we heard their voices, too.
The other thing we've noticed is that a lot of the things that happen at these events have to do with the readiness of the group collectively, but also individually. And the ETs, as opposed to the stuff that goes on in the military world of hoaxing abductions and hoaxing mutilations and all this stuff, that's all man-made stuff. And but the actual ET presence is very gentle and psychically very nonviolent. So they don't want to create fear. And if they sense that someone would be frightened if they went too far in this sort of strange phenomenon or materializing, they won't do it. One year we were at Joshua Tree. It wasn't a few years ago, I guess. And
there's 7. Yeah,
it was in the last 3 or 4 years. And we were sitting in circle at this site, and we were in this really deep meditation, and I was guiding this meditation into cosmic consciousness and God consciousness and remote viewing, and the group was extremely coherent, very coherent, which is what the ETs are looking for, is that kind of massive coherence and orderliness. But there was a member of the team, and it's a wonderful man, but who's had a lot of anxiety problems in his childhood and what have you. And the ETs very compassionately checked in with him and mentally asked, and he heard this thought that said, would it be okay if we totally materialized? And he said, and is the group ready? They were deflecting it away from him and just said, is the group ready? And he says, oh, yes, I think we are. And at that instant, as soon as he answered back, an extraterrestrial vehicle fully materialized about 15 feet above us to the east of us over the landing area where this big teal blue ship had landed at Joshua Tree back in 96. But this was like just 3 years ago or so. And this craft came over, and it came over the sort of the south end of the group going from east to west. And if I had stood up on my chair and jumped, I think I could have touched the underside of it. And it wasn't lit up. It was non-illuminated. And it wasn't that large. I'd say 20 feet across. And it floated across making the weirdest sound. Everyone who heard this sound will never forget it because it almost sounded like a didgeridoo, but it was going and it got just to the west of the circle, very low, 15 feet above us, and dematerialized in thin air. And so everyone was going, oh, my God. But, of course, when this person on our team shared how it unfolded, it was clear that the ETs were concerned that if they did that without some warning to him, he might have jumped out of his skin, and so they're very compassionate. This is one thing I always point out to people. Everyone's, in the public, often when I give a public talk, I'll be, oh, aren't you afraid of this? And I say, oh, no. I'd be worried what humans might do to us. I mean, I've had death threats and assassination attempts and everything else. But the ETs, not a problem. And they're very, very gentle, and they never push the experience beyond what the group as a whole, but also the individuals in the group are ready for, which is a sign of great enlightenment because it's compassionate. It's like the compassion of the Buddha. And so it's a beautiful experience all the way around. So I encourage people